On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing housing inventory, pending home sales, and home price expectations from over 100 experts. Today is Monday, March 4th, 2024. I am Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Here we go, getting into our first full week of March. Love to know which market you are tuning in from live here today, and I hope everybody had a great weekend. Let's get right into our inventory report as we cover every single Monday to kick off the week or the beginning of whenever the hot sheet week starts. We've got data out from Logan Motoshami of Housing Wire as we take a look at each and every single week. I'm happy to say it looks like inventory last week went up. And when you compare that to last year, that's a boost of confidence in where inventory is heading. The uptick was slight, 497,600 plus homes to 498,339. That's for active inventory. When the same week last year, we experienced a decline, a sizable decline in active inventory from 430,000 plus to 419,000 plus. So across the country, we're in a much more stable position as it relates to inventory than when we compare it to last year. This doesn't mean that we're anywhere close to what a normal market would be. If we take a look at the chart, which is available for everybody, of course, inside of BAMX, when we look at a normal 2019 timeframe, we had 816,000 active listings this week back in 2019. We are at a 500,000 active inventory, getting close, though, to the peak of 2023, which was only 570,000. So, I mean, if we hit that, certainly I think we'll hit that and cross that in the second half of the year as inventory typically collects on the market. We're talking after the spring market, like last year, right? We saw an 11,000 dip across the country this week on active inventory. Well, that's because we're into the spring and the inventory that's out there, people are buying it. And when the spring gets over and you get into summer and people aren't paying attention as much, or those folks who are shopping for a school move have made the decision they're not in the market anymore. You start to see that those sellers who quote unquote missed the boat of the spring market kind of collect onto the market. So I think we'll cross the 570,000, which was the inventory peak for 2023, certainly this year. But if we do that in the spring, that really means there's a lot more opportunity for buyers when we generally are talking about across the country. Okay. Of course, there are some markets, Northeast, Connecticut or Massachusetts, some areas like that where you actually have less inventory in areas right now than you did the same time last year. But when you look at the Sun Belt states, inventory is going up in almost every market. And you look at where the bulk of transactions come from, right? That there's inventory up, certainly in the markets where we've seen a lot of building. Okay. And in markets where there's a lot of rental options too, because it brings in a unique affordability option for buyers. Good news is inventory is up. That will help stabilize the market and it will help buyers achieve a price point potentially, or some help in alleviating the price points anyways. All right, new listings. This is one thing that we're eager to see more of, new listing data, because if we get new listings, it means that sellers have become open to the idea of selling. Most sellers are buyers open to the idea of selling in this interest rate environment. New listings for last week came in at over 52,000, when the same week last year they were just over 48,000. So we're continuing that trend here. The red line, this red line here is 2023. So new listings, 2022 actually performed better than 2023 up to this point. I mean, really throughout the whole year, 2022 was performing a lot better on new listings than 2023. But that maroon line, which is this year, 2024, has really performed better than either of those 2 years, outside of this 1 week at the end of January when 22 performed a little bit better in that one given week. But every other week this year, 24, we've performed better than the same week in 23 and 22 on new listing data. Okay. And we'll see here what happens next week. Okay. Now that we're into March, this, you know, historically opportunistic time for sellers to take advantage and get their home on the market, March and April. Are we going to have this spike that we saw in 2022? That it'll be very interesting to see where we sit next week on the new listings. But we've seen encouraging signs that every week we have performed better than at any point the last 2 years in comparison. The next 2 months are going to be very telling. I mean, look at 2022, how much more new listing data. I mean, really all the way into the end of the summer, significantly more new listing data than 2023. 2023, of course, being the bottom of new listings that we've seen. So can we get back to at least a 2022 level or above on new listings? Be very encouraging sign. Certainly what would help that, if you get rates down. We have 100 experts that comment on rates, and we have a median number that they came up with. We'll share here later in the show. But rates would help that. But right now, it's like it doesn't seem like we're getting that help from rates. We got a lot of job report coming out this week, so it'll be interesting to see what the 10-year does. We do have a Jerome Powell testimony in front of Congress. We'll see if there's reactions with the 10-year with that this week. So there's a lot going on in the economy this week that could impact the 10-year, but it remains to be seen. And we haven't seen 6.5. It feels like in a long time on the 30-year fix. We've been hovering up over 7% here for quite some time here early on in the year for the majority of the new year. Price cuts about every year. A third of homes will do a price cut to some degree before they sell in a typical year. Obviously, it was not typical in 2022, as you saw only 17.2% do a price cut before selling. And here are the price cut percentages for the last week. It's 30.5%. Same week last year, 31. So really in line, really flat with last year on price cuts. And that same week in 2022 was 17.2%. Of course, in early 2022, before the interest rates really started to take off, there was no reason a seller would do a price cut. The market was experiencing 20 plus offers on median and average price homes in almost every market across the country. So why would they price cut? But when you see this 30.5%, people get this stat wrong because they'll look at 22 and be like 17.5%. Now we're experiencing 30+% people price cutting, when they're going to spin that as to say, oh, everybody's cutting their home, the market's going to no markets. This is a normal price cut. When you go back and you look at what's typical in a normal real estate market, it's about a third of homes will do a price cut because we know the reasons why. Sellers are overpriced, or maybe new inventory comes on and is competing with them all of a sudden. And, the smart sellers say, okay, well, there's 3 homes in my community I'm going to be competing with. I want to sell first. Do I come in over or under that price? Right. And so when those things happen, then the other sellers need to adjust and react to what's going on. So a third is normal. We're actually below a third. So we're still, 30.5%. We're still in a very, very healthy, strong environment for sellers across this country. Okay. There's your inventory update for the week. Let's take a look at pending home sales. According to National Association of Realtors, remember, pending home sales were very strong in December. And it was a welcome sign to say, hey, this spring market could take off. It might be an early spring market. Well, if interest rates stayed where they were in December, we might have seen that. We might see that at some point later this year if interest rates come back down into the sixes, but we didn't see it in January. Pending home sales receded 4.9% in January. Now that the numbers are in, we know month-over-month contract signings rose in the Northeast and the West, but they fell in the Midwest and the South. Compared to 1 year ago, pending home sales declined in all U.S. regions. Okay, so from December to January is where that Northeast and West increase came, and the decrease in the Midwest and the South. But when you go year over year, pending home sales down in all U.S. regions, that correlates to Mortgage Banker Association's numbers that mortgage demand is down, mortgage applications are down. We've been seeing that really all the last 4, 5, 6 weeks as these rates got back up over 7%. So why were pending home sales down in January? It's really about that. It's about those interest rates that we've seen now go up and have been very sticky in the high sevens. Year over year pending transactions, what's that number? Down 8.8%. The Northeast declined 5.5%. The Midwest declined 11.6%. The South by 9%. And the West by 7% compared to January 2023. Okay, so there's your update. There'll be more information linked into BAMX as well as today. Let me just give you I was looking at the show notes today. I'm like, oh my, there's so much going into BAMX today for all you guys. There's 6 charts on that inventory topic. There's 1 chart on the pending home sales. I'll show you that in a second. And then this next topic we're about to cover, there's 11 charts in BAMX. So what is that? 18 total charts and downloads, as well as the full show notes, which you see on your screen here. So many of you guys are using in your database and your email newsletters. 18 charts plus show notes. This is just Monday's show notes. Use code HOT to get 10% off of BAMX. If you're unfamiliar with what's going on in BAMX, go check it out. Use code HOT to get 10% off, and you will be shocked to see how much is going in there. So there's the index there, 74.3. 2001 on pending home sales was 100. So you can see how far off we are on pending home sales to get back to the Mendoza line there on that. Month over month down 4.9%. And again, here are the regionals. All right, there's your pending home sale update per NAR. Now, Fannie Mae reported a expert panel of 100 experts and what they think about mortgage rates and other topics. Okay, so it's a panel of housing experts. Report right out of Washington, D.C. They expect, we'll start with home prices. They expect annual national home price growth of 3.8% this year and 3.4% in 2025. This is according to the quarter 1 2024 Fannie Mae Home Price Expectation Survey. It's produced in partnership with this company here, which I'm not going to say the name because I have no idea. Pulse Economics. There you go. Pulse Economics is the company. Haven't heard of them. So they pull over 100 experts across the housing mortgage industry and academia for forecasts of national home price percentage changes in each of the coming 5 calendar years as measured by the Fannie Mae HPI. Okay, now this is up from 2.4% and 2.7% respectively in 24 and in 25. We're seeing a lot more of that. We saw beginning of the year last year, high expectations on home price growth. Then rates hit 8% in October. Remember when rates hit 8% in October? And then everybody went down. I mean, Zillow went from plus 6% down to flat. Okay, then now they're back up into this range that the 100 experts have chimed in at, this 3 to 4% range. Okay, so you're seeing most of these analysts and modelists go up now after coming in the fourth quarter near flat, now going back the other direction, going up for the year. Still makes sense to me that home prices in most markets rise. We just looked at inventory. We're well off of a normal 2019 market. We know anecdotally in many of our markets how many homeowners would be sellers if they felt confident about the buy side, meaning not just the rate, but the inventory options, the options available. Is the right home available for them to decide that it's time to go and put their home on the market because there's enough options that they're comfortable with buying available to them? It's a big part of not just the rates, but it's a big part of what things that are being held up is would-be home buyers, aka sellers, don't see suitable housing for their needs, whether of course that be price or just the the layout and the home that they want, right? And so if that were to loosen up, then you'll see home prices, I think, certainly could certainly continue to go up. But as these inventory issues surround us, it's hard to see that home prices are going to go really anywhere. There are going to be some markets that we do definitely see home prices tick down. I'm sitting in one of them right now, by the way, Naples, Florida. I think not when I say tick down. I didn't say crash down. Just don't get confused with housing doomers. Tick down, couple percent down. Okay, so and you may be in a Sunbelt market where you're like, yeah, I could see that here just based on the amount of inventory. Okay, now there is a seasonality to this market that I'm sitting in right now as I sit here in my Naples, Florida studio that might be unlike, you might be in a Charlotte, for example. I don't see a tick down in Charlotte. Maybe I'm wrong, but there seems to be a lot of annual demand, not a seasonal market. Seems like there's a lot of job growth. Certainly there's a lot of wealth coming to South Florida. Totally get that. See it every day. But there's actual job expansion going to a place like Charlotte. Okay. So let's get into some more of these panel thoughts. I think some of them are intriguing. Again, there's 11 charts associated with these panels here. Increased share of panels 41% in Q1 2024 compared to 26 in 23, indicate higher upside risk to the home price forecasts. So that's volatility. Here's the big one. The panel anticipates a median 30-year fixed mortgage rate of 6% by the end of 2024. That's the big one to me. That sticks out the most because you've got 100 experts that are forecasting that over this year, because we're sitting over 7% right now, the 30-year fix is going to come down a full point. We saw how much more pending home sales was typically, you wouldn't have more pending home sales in a December than a January. We saw how many pending home sales happened in December when we're in that lower 6 range than we had in January. We just went over that, right? So could you have a market that's kind of flipped this year where if the end of the year you're going to see 6%, is that where you see kind of that surge in activity just based on the rates opening up the market to more people? The option of home buying and home selling opens up to more folks when you go from 7 to 6% on the 30 year. And we have 100 panelists or 100, panelists in this Fannie Mae survey, but 100 experts that suggest that will happen, that we're going to see that 1% decline on the 30-year fixed. Okay. That would be encouraging to see. I mean, again, I've got the over on, call it 6.364 for the average for this year. But if we're at 7 for 6 months and we're at 6 for 6 months, well, that's 6.5. So I guess that would be the over. But hey, would we take that? Would we take 6, 7, 8 months in the 6s this year? I think at this point right now, sitting up over 7, we'd all certainly sign up for that. Where the optimism was in December, it was a little overstated. It was a little early. It was a little not enough information for me to go the full, but people were like talking 5% 30-year fixed this year. Some people still are talking 5% 30-year fixed. But I see that inner industry, that 5% talk. I don't see that. I mean, here's 100 panelists that aren't suggesting that. from Fannie Mae. So take that for what it's worth. I think the 5% talk, because when inside real estate people say they're going to be 5% 30-year fixed rates, they're really talking about 5.9s, which is a 6 to me. And then the consumer hears the 5s and they're thinking 5.0. So this 5% 30-year fixed talk is misleading to me. I'd stay away from it. I'd be more encouraged if we can get into the low 6s. I think that's more of a reliable estimate. I think 100 experts across Fannie Mae saying by the end of the year, I'll go back to the show notes here so I don't misquote it. The panel anticipates a median 30-year fixed rate of 6% by the end of 24. By the end. So not like 6% for the whole year, by the end of the year. I think it's really important to contextualize what we're talking about with the 30-year fix. Nobody knows. Nobody has a crystal ball. Jobs play a big role in this. The inflation plays a big role in this and where the 10-year is going to go. But this is why we want to. This is where when we had the podcast with Logan Motashami over at Knowledge Brokers, if you've missed that, go back and listen. Okay, when he talks about leading with payment for folks, it's going to be really important, especially as we go from 7 to potentially 6, as these panelists suggest. Leading with payment on the follow up. Hey, when we were looking at 7 payment X, now payment Y. It'll be a much more conducive payment for many people there. So I'd stay away from getting people's hopes up on 5. What that's going to do is create a pause in their home searching. And if they pause, going back to where the projections come in on prices, 3.8% up in 2024, you will have cost them 3.8% potentially, according to these 100 panelists, in home values. That if they bought now, they would have seen that 3.8% appreciation. And this home price appreciation, we know what it does in the long term, how it compounds year over year, and how it has for the last 30, 40 years for homeowners in America. All right, there's a whole bunch of charts available on BAMX for that. I'm not going to go through them all here, but you can grab some of them. I will go through a couple of them here. Here's the impact of, this is something I've talked about a bunch, the impact of softening multifamily rents on single-family home prices. Modest downward pressure, 59%. Modest downward pressure for single-family home prices because of the softening multifamily rents. Rents coming down equals more affordability. No downward pressure is 31%. So modest to no is making up 90% of those 104 respondents. You've got factors most likely to alter the pace of single-family home prices in 2024, and highest coming in is constrained home supply. Makes sense. Constrained home supply there on single-family home price appreciate at a faster rate in 24 than it is in 23. It's because of the inventory. Okay. Number 2 is sustained pent-up demand. I'm sorry. Number 2 is lower mortgage rates. Okay. Well, we haven't seen that yet. Sustained pent-up demand is number 3. Single-family home prices appreciate at a slower rate in 24. If that scenario were to play out, why would that play out? Softer job market would be the number 1 factor playing into that. If you get a softening job market, the risk of recession goes up. Softer job market also typically leads to a 10-year going down and a 30-year fix going down. You know, it's kind of like we've got this strong job market right now. Which interestingly enough, we're going to get some job reports this week, which is going to be huge. Because there's been some people kind of, I don't know, leaking out there into, Wall Street Journal. I saw had something on this and some others where it's like, hey, this job market's super strong, but is it that strong? Are we replacing full-time jobs with part-time jobs? Which could mean there might be some unseen cracks in the job market. A softening job market is a 30-year down. Okay. But it also comes with, typically home prices coming down, risk of recession, those types of things. So I don't think anybody wants to root for a softening of the job market. There's some pretty fascinating data in here. If you want to pick through it, we've made it easy for you to do so on BAMX. Use code HOT to get into that. We do have a Jerome Powell week, not a FOMC meeting week, but we have 2 days of Jerome Powell testimony in front of Congress. I think that's Wednesday and Thursday. So Thursday morning for sure, we'll cover typically when he does his testimony. Here's the 10-year 4.225 up a little bit leading into these job reports this week and Jerome Powell commentary. Typically when he does the Congress testimony thing, you know, there's not much value in it. I find his press conferences to be more valuable because he's got his prepared statements. He has his thoughts from the meeting, and there's question and answer from the media. Believe it or not, the media asks better questions than our folks on Capitol Hill, because when he's sitting there in front of Congress, you know, they go left, right, and they're all like trying to get a soundbite in, and none of them are really economic experts. I mean, look at our national debt. Do you think if any of these folks were experts with finances and the economy, we'd be in this much debt? I think it's $34 trillion or something right now. We're adding $1 trillion every 100 days to the U.S. debt. That was in CNBC the other day. You can look that up, but that was a fascinating read. The last like 300-day increments, basically a quarter, right? We're adding $1 trillion to the national debt. Absolutely absurd. But anyways, Congress will ask very political based questions. And then Jerome Powell has to repeatedly answer how, I have a mandate from you folks, Congress, that I stabilize prices and maximize employment. He like kind of repeats himself, but there could be some nuggets in there. We'll pull from that. Okay. 10 years up in probably more so anticipation of what's going to happen with the job reports this week than they are with what the dog and pony show is going to be in DC with Jerome Powell. 7.08 on the 30-year fixed daily survey. That's down a tick from the rest of the week. So we ended the week on Friday lower than we had been at any other point throughout the week. The Freddie Mac 30-year fixed weekly did come in at its highest level of the year at 6.94 on that. We'll see where this goes this week with the job report and everything else that's going on with the economy. Also this week, we have a marketing framework webinar, a BAM webinar with Luke Acree, the CEO of Reminder Media. Luke is a fascinating marketing mind. He's talking about how to generate consistent referrals and listings from your sphere. Okay. It's going to be Wednesday at 3:00. It's a free webinar. We'll put the link down below. If you can't make the live webinar Wednesday at 3, if you're a BAMX member, it'll be uploaded into BAMX. So you'll be able to watch the replay. If you're not a BAMX member, make sure you get the free webinar. That'll be Wednesday at 3:00. That'll be your opportunity to do that. I think there'll be some live Q&A with Luke as well. Love learning from him on what he's doing to generate activity from your sphere, both referrals and listings. So don't miss that. Hope everybody has a great week here. We're off and running into March. I'll be back here tomorrow on the hot sheet, 9:30 on the East, 6:30 on the West. You know the deal in between. I will talk to you soon. Until then, toodaloo.